Welcome to this edition of Backstage Pass with Leah Chang. I'm your host, Leah Chang. On this edition of Backstage Pass with Leah Chang, I celebrated playwrights David Henry Hwang and Moises Kaufman at the National Arts Club's presentation of the Medals of Honor for Achievement in Theater, held at the landmark Tilden Mansion, the home of the NAC in New York City on November 10, 2025. Moisés Kaufman is a 2015 National Medal of Arts recipient and Obie and Lucille Lortel Award winner, best known for the Laramie Project, Gross Indecency, The Three Trials of Oscar Wilde, and Here There Are Blueberries.
For tonight, the National Arts Club bestows its biggest, its most prestigious, its most glamorous and glorious award, the Medal of Honor in Theater, on two people, each of whom has made history in their own right. Never before has the club bestowed this medal to two unrelated people, David Henry Hwang and Moisés Kaufman. When we all met to decide who would be worthy to receive the Medal of Honor, it was a unanimous, instantaneous, drama-free, but filled with drama, decision to name David Henry Hwang and Moisés Kaufman as joint recipients of the 2025 Medal of Honor in Theater. As your appetizers marinate now on your plates, the paint continues to dry on the canvases of their portraits, which I think you just saw, and they were painted by our resident master painter, Michael Shane Neal. And their depictions will hang in our portrait gallery for generations, and we suspect that they will be as visited as the Mona Lisa. So yes, while we are making history tonight at the club, David and Moises made history and continue to make history with their writings and their productions.
It is in a spirit of gratitude and admiration that I reminisce a little about my dear friend Moisés Kaufman. We met in 1996. I was an actor from the South with a classical background, working a retail job in Manhattan, looking for a way forward, looking for a break. And boy, did I get one. Our friend Maren Hinkle said, "There's this guy downtown named Moisés Kaufman. He's working on a show about Oscar Wilde, and he's looking for grown-up actors who can do a good British accent. Apparently, there's no script, just a stack of documents." Well, this sounded interesting to me. I'm into documents. And I was mad about Oscar Wilde, and I thought, I'm going to offer this man my services. And somehow, I don't even remember how, I found myself part of this gang of actors working together with Moisés. We got together a lot. Evenings, weekends, workshops, readings. We did a lot of readings. We were telling the story of Oscar Wilde's demise, and the stack of documents was mostly found texts relating to Wilde's private life, his career, his famous trial. They were court transcripts, newspaper articles, essays, letters. It was a strange way to work. We weren't going to write a play, we were going to build or construct a play out of all those papers. Well, I had never been a part of anything like that. Moisés liked to say that it was a tectonic project, meaning structure. It was a wonderful but fiendishly difficult puzzle to solve. How would we bring all this dry paper to life? How can so much prose become a poem, a thing with fire and beauty in it? The answer is very slowly and very carefully. This was the challenge Moisés had set for himself and for us, and the solution, the finished work, was so different, so soulful and precise that it was stunning. Our play, called Gross Indecency, was a greater success than we could have dreamed. Audiences were gripped by the story and by the ingenious manner in which it was told. Our raw materials were more documentary than literary, but we found new dramatic power in our focus on selection, placement, layering, juxtaposition. It was a tectonic wonder. Moisés was confident that the devices of other art forms, sculpture, collage, music, architecture, could be employed in the theater and in the right hands made into something exquisite. I've never worked on anything that made me so proud. I have worked with many directors since then, but never in a setting like those long ago rehearsals. Papers everywhere. Laughter and argument, inspiration, frustration, and always Moisés at the head of the table. Our jovial, loving, meticulous paterfamilias, patiently honing every beat, every line, every transition into a moment of clarity and power. Of all the directors in my life, Moisés Kaufman will always be the poet. And it is that heightened aesthetic that he brings to everything he does. And so we are here tonight to celebrate this great moment of recognition from Moisés and to see his portrait added to this historic collection. God bless you. Congratulations. I love you.
Good evening. I'm privileged tonight to be given the opportunity, the first opportunity in 9 years of working together, to give a speech about my friend, my creative partner, my co-conspirator, the person with whom I have been in the trenches for nearly a decade, dreaming, toiling, stressing, rejoicing, building, laughing, drinking,
Crying.
fighting, crying, fighting sometimes. Moisés has heard me say many times that as a producer, my most important role is to support the vision of the artist and to know when to push and when to lift. Moisés says that I know when to push and when to shove. And also lift. In the time that Moisés and I have been partners at Tectonic Theater Project, I've learned a couple of things. First, I've learned that the words good enough do not exist in Moisés Kaufman's vocabulary. Second, that theater in his hands isn't just a place to tell stories, it's a place to ask questions, big ones, dangerous ones, the kind that stop you in your tracks and recalibrate the way you see the world. And third, that he has this uncanny ability to take apart a play, or a moment, or a movement, and show you how it ticks. I remember one night early in our partnership, we went to see The Little Foxes on Broadway. Remember that incredible production with Laura Linney and Cynthia Nixon? I was unexpectedly deeply moved, and I couldn't figure out why the play worked so well. I asked him what I thought was a rhetorical question about that ineffable quality of truly great art. For over an hour, over drinks, I got a master class from Moisés. He knew exactly why it was great. He dissected the play for me scene by scene, breaking down how the tension builds, how the silences do the storytelling, how the moral architecture of the piece holds together like the gears of a watch. He spoke about it the way an engineer might describe a bridge, or a composer a symphony. By the end of it, I realized I hadn't just seen The Little Foxes that night, I'd seen into the mind of someone who truly understands how theater works. That's what it's like to be around him. He's constantly illuminating the art form, helping you see it in deeper, sharper focus. And that's what he's done his whole career, from Gross Indecency to 33 Variations, to our great collaboration together, Here There Are Blueberries, and all the work that's come since. He's built a theater that is both rigorous and radical, one that believes that art can provoke empathy, ignite conversation, and shift the culture toward justice. And yet for all that brilliance, for all of that intellect, he leads with heart. He leads with curiosity. He cares deeply about people, and he creates rooms that nurture collaboration and participation. He believes that actors are the most underused resource in the American theater, considered by most to be only interpretive artists. In Moisés's rooms, everyone is a generative artist. The actors, the stage managers, the production assistants, everyone in the room is a storyteller. So tonight, I stand with you here and I think about all the people, audiences around the world, students in classrooms and rehearsal studios and laboratories, artists, dreamers, makers, who've been transformed by the work of Tectonic Theater Project and by Moisés's vision. And I think this is exactly what a life in art should look like. The National Arts Club Medal of Honor is meant to recognize those who've made an indelible mark on our culture. Moisés, your mark isn't just on the stage, it's on the people who've sat in the dark and found themselves illuminated by what you've made. Moisés, thank you for your passion, your precision, your impossible standards, and your friendship. And thank you for showing us again and again the truth when it's told with bravery and love and boundless imagination can change the world. Congratulations, my dear friend.
We're deeply honored to present 2 medals in the field of theater to this pair of extraordinary artists who are with us tonight. So to David Henry Hwang for his exceptional strength as a storyteller, illuminating the complexities of identity and culture through his masterful voice in the American theater. And to Moisés Kaufman for his visionary direction and the powerful empathy that infuses his work that challenges, heals, and brings communities together through the stage. Each of you has shaped the landscape of contemporary art and theater in ways that deepen our understanding of humanity itself. So I do this all at the same time. David and Moisés, congratulations and thank you for making our world a better place.
Before I begin, I want to acknowledge that there is one actor in this room who has been both in my plays and in David's plays, and it is the formidable, magnificent Kathy Schulman. Kathy was in M. Butterfly, and more recently in Here There Are Blueberries. And what a great honor it is to have you with us, Kathy. You are one of the greats, and we are so fortunate to have you with us. I saw M. Butterfly when I first arrived in New York. And here I was, a Venezuelan kid, Jewish, gay, deciding that I wanted to be in the theater. And I got to see John Lithgow, our beloved John Lithgow, do M. Butterfly. And it was such a revelation to be in the presence of that play. Number one, it was stunningly interesting. It was a work of great passion and intellect. And I thought, theater can do all of that? So I am so honored to be here with you tonight, David, because it was a gateway into America for me. And I thought, maybe there is a room for me to make work here. So thank you. I want to talk for 1 second about Michael Emerson, who is a gigantic human and star. We started doing a Tectonic Theater Project started, and for the first 4 years of the company, we usually had more people on stage than in the audience. I'm not being sarcastic. There was one play we did that had 2 actors on stage, and there was 1 person in the audience. And then years later, I was doing a play on Broadway, and somebody came to me and said, "Remember, I saw this play that you did. I was the only member in the audience." I was like, I'm so grateful. But Michael joined Tectonic Theater Project when we were at that stage, where we were the best kept secret in American theater. And I had written my first play called Gross Indecency, The 3 Trials of Oscar Wilde, and I had cast Michael as one of the lawyers in the play. And because we didn't have any money, the casting process to cast Oscar Wilde was rather diminished. And the casting director, who was herself very talented but also didn't have any money, was conducting all of her auditions in the basement of a building. And the basement was very dark. And so I cast this actor, who was a wonderful actor, was a bit too old for the role. Oscar Wilde, at the moment of the trials, was 40 years old. This actor was 75. And because of the dim light in the basement where we were casting, I didn't realize that. So we have the first day of rehearsal, and it was in the basement of a church, because that was all we could afford as a rehearsal space. And he walked in, and I thought, oh my God, I have completely screwed myself over. This is never going to work. And we had the first day of rehearsals, and I got home that night, and I was so mortified. I had spent 3 years writing this play. And I go to my husband, and I said, "Jeff, I think I made a horrible mistake. I've cast the wrong person as Oscar Wilde." And he says, "Why?" I said, "Because he's 75 and the actor was 40. And my husband, in his wisdom, says, "He's an actor. He can play 40. And I was like, "You're right. He can play 40. But just to be safe, come tomorrow to rehearsal. And you will see him, and then you'll tell me if this is okay." So he came the next morning. We had the first hour and a half session, and then we take a break. And I said, "Jeff, so what do you think?" He says, "He's too old." So I immediately started calling some friends who could play Oscar. But I had been seeing Michael do this incredible work as a lawyer in the play. And I said, "Michael, would you mind coming in and auditioning for Oscar Wilde?" And he said, "Yes, of course, I'll come." So he came the next morning, and as we were about to start the audition, he said, "Moises, I'm very happy to be auditioning for this, but I want you to know that I am very comfortable with my role. I love my role. So if you decide that I'm not right for this role, please don't worry. I'm perfectly fine with the role that I'm casting." And I thought, what a mensch. At that moment, that was a moment that could change his career. He was worried about me. And he came and auditioned, and I cast him as Oscar Wilde, and it was the best decision of my life. It changed your life, and it changed my life. And it was a magical moment. And since then, Michael has had the career he deserves, because he's one of our great actors. So thank you for all the kind things you said about me. One day I hope to reciprocate. When I walked in through these doors and I saw my portraits and David's portraits, I was a little alarmed. I mean, the portrait, God bless, the painter is wonderful. I loved it. I thought I was very well represented. But isn't portrait the thing that you do to artists when you put them in mausoleums? So I was a little terrified, but then I was talking to Michael Emerson, and I said, "I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a great, wonderful thing on the painting, so that the painting will age ungracefully, while David and I remain as youthful as we are now." So if you come to see that portrait soon, you will see that it has changed for the worse. The National Arts Club was a club that was made by artists. It was made by artists for artists. And I think it's a very moving tribute to be honored by artists. That's what, at the end of the day, as David says, we don't care about reviews, we care about being honored by other artists. So this is a great honor, and I'm very, very grateful. Richard Sheehan, thank you so much for nominating me. Sarah, thank you for being here. I want to believe in times like these that are so difficult and so politically damaging, that art has a spiritual ministry, that it can raise and sanctify everything that we as human beings touch. And in that context, I think that we have the ability and the power to speak to people in a much higher level than religion or politics, because we can address people both in their brains and in their hearts and remind them of our common humanity. So in times like this, I want to believe that our responsibility is heightened and that the work we do is more important than ever. And so here it is to all of the artists who are hopefully turning the curve of the universe towards justice. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me for this edition of Backstage Pass with Leah Chang. Until next time.